This is India at 9, broadcasting live from the CNN-IBN headquarters in New Delhi.
It's been billed as the day of departure in Egypt, as Hosni Mubarak's hour of reckoning finally comes. Those are the protests in the heart of Cairo after the prayers. The mob is promising to march onto the presidential palace. Is today the day of reckoning, or will Mubarak live to fight another day? Good evening, hello and welcome. It's being billed as the day of departure in Egypt. The world's eyes are on Cairo. Will people power in the Arab world finally topple Hosni Mubarak after 30 years in power? Egypt is our top focus. In our other headlines tonight.
Wednesday and Thursday and overnight, you had thousands of committed activists here who fought and bled to hold on to this territory and to continue with their principal demand.
Thousands pray and protest in Cairo's Tahrir Square, surrounded by soldiers in riot gear. Reports suggest now the US is brokering an exit deal for President Mubarak. Journalists in Egypt are assaulted and detained once again to prevent their filming the protest. CNN-IBN's crew detained for the second time in 24 hours. The Al Jazeera office is attacked. That's our top focus in our other headlines tonight. CNN-IBN accesses the names of 15 account holders in the Bank of Liechtenstein, the list with the Indian government since 2009, but the money in these trust accounts totals just 52 crores. Is this a black money whitewash? Former Telecom Minister A. Raja is jointly interrogated with his two aides. CBI sources now tell CNN-IBN the 2G scam money was allegedly invested in Mauritius and Madagascar on Raja's behest. The three Pakistani cricketers accused of spot fixing will stand trial in London on charges of accepting bribes and conspiracy to cheat. But first tonight to Egypt, our continuing focus over this week, the protests that have gathered force this Friday in Cairo's Tahrir Square. Today, remember, is the deadline that the opposition set for President Hosni Mubarak to step down. Thousands of protesters have gathered after the Friday prayers. Army tanks have surrounded the square along with soldiers in riot gear. The Mubarak government is continuing its crackdown on journalists. Reports suggest the Obama administration is brokering a deal for Mubarak to resign and hand over power to a transitional government headed by Vice President Omar Suleiman. Okay, let's take a look at the pictures that we are getting from Cairo's Tahrir Square, packed with thousands of mostly anti-government protesters, all ready to the palace. Al Jazeera is reporting a stunning reversal for the establishment. Military officers running from the center of protests. CNN reports, though, that the army has actually tightened security. But unlike in the last 10 days, today's protests have been peaceful, with Friday prayers ending on a calm note. The Speaker of Cairo's State Bank, Al-Azhar, has joined the protesters. President Hosni Mubarak has made it clear that he was ready to step down, but feared his exit will push Egypt into chaos. Let's take a look at what CNN's Ivan Watson is now reporting from Cairo's Tahrir Square.
This was very much a political rally, a demonstration against the Egyptian government with people from all different walks of life, and it had been peaceful. And then it turned into a bloody, bloody battle Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, throughout the day, Thursday and Thursday night. And now it seems to have recovered that original festive feeling where Egyptians who had long been scared about speaking out against their government are gathering to unite behind one cause, and that is really the overthrow of Hosni Mubarak, calling for his immediate dismissal. Now, do these people represent the majority of Egyptian society? That I cannot say. they are calling for this to happen months before presidential elections are scheduled to take place. Their argument is that the last elections in November and December, parliamentary elections, were widely seen as fraudulent, and they say they cannot trust the man who has held on to this position. We do have to say there are supporters of that movement here. They are a large number, I believe, of the combatants who've helped to protect this area. Whether or not Hosni Mubarak stepping down would lead to immediate chaos, I'm not sure. There are opposition parties here, an opposition candidate who ran for president in 2005 and was later jailed, Ayman Noor, who has argued, how dare this man claim that he can be the only guarantor of peace in a country of more than 70 million people. Egypt can also bring other leaders and other political parties and beliefs to the table without this country descending into chaos.
Okay, let's go across to Foreign Affairs Editor Surya Gangadharan joining us from Cairo. Surya, there's an air of anticipation for the last couple of hours. Will the protesters now march towards the presidential palace?
I think the protesters...
Well, right now there's a huge rally going on at Tahrir Square, and it's been pretty peaceful right through. We've heard some stray gunshots being fired. Not quite clear in what context. Is it celebratory? Is it something else? But what's clear is that the army has been able to keep both the pro and anti-Mubarak groups apart. There's been more intent shown this time. So it would seem that today has gone off fairly well. And if all these reports about an American plan for President Mubarak to leave are actually true and do come out, then clearly Egypt is on a roll. We could see major lifting of spirits tomorrow.
No, but are you saying, Surya, that we will not see these groups now marching towards the presidential palace, that we cannot, that as of now there seems to be some attempt being made to strike a deal?
There's a lot of speculation right now that a deal is in the works, and that perhaps relates to why there's been such peace and relative peace here today in Cairo. Yes, of course, there was an attack on the office, but by and large it's been peaceful. There could be a rally as the president, yes. I don't think the groups at Tahrir Square want to give up at this point. They have come so far, they've lost a lot. They're not going to give up at this point. I don't believe they will.
If they're not giving up, but at the same time, there seems to be peace. What role is the army? You're seeing the army there. You've been traveling across Cairo. Is the army playing a neutral role?
The army is playing a more productive role, let's put it that way. They have been able to separate the pro and anti-Mubarak groups. They have ensured that this rally goes off peacefully. There's been tanks deployed all over Cairo. In fact, the couple of trips I was making in the custody of the police, we've been stopped at various army roadblocks. And they seem to be checking people all the time, getting people out of vehicles, checking for weapons of any kind. There seems to be a more intent here. Perhaps there is orders right from the top that this rally has to go off peacefully. They don't want Egypt's image to be studied any further.
But what about those who are sitting there in Tahrir Square? Are they going to sit for the long count? What happens tomorrow?
I think they're going to sit there for the long count. I think there's going to be a prolonged presence there at Tahrir Square. But if things go off well today, if there is perhaps some indication of an announcement in the day or the next day that Mubarak is going to leave, I think we're going to see a huge coming down of temperatures here in Cairo and all over Egypt. But really today has been a testing day. It's gone off peacefully. That's a good sign. It means there is something perhaps in the works.
There is something in the works. Surya Gangadharan, will come back to you later. Meanwhile, remember, thousands are also rallying in other Egyptian cities against President Hosni Mubarak. CNN's Nick Robertson now reports from Alexandria.
A large gathering of people setting off from the main central mosque now, walking along the Corniche, coming in this direction. It's been a very peaceful gathering. There has been no overt presence of soldiers around, but the anti-Mubarak demonstrators who've organized this particular gathering have been were searching people's bags, searching people coming into the area around the mosque to make sure no one was carrying any weapons. The prayers have concluded, but what the imam was telling the people there there was that they need to remain united, remain fixed in their calls for a whole regime change, not to accept what the government is offering now, not to waver and accept a sort of a partial step down by Hosni Mubarak and hand off to his vice president, that they should stay to those core demands. And he reminded them, you're not here on representing religious views, you're not here representing political views, you're here representing yourselves and your own views. And he repeated the importance of remaining united in their demands. He also said something else that was very interesting. He said that if people felt that by going out to prayers during the day that they might contribute to the strife and get into a violent situation, then it was okay for them not to go out to those prayers during the day. But the demonstration now, you can probably see several thousand people, relatively large for Alexandria, not the biggest we've seen so far, but still a strong gathering, marching down the street here. Not clear exactly where they're going to go, but this is typical of the demonstrations in Alexandria. They have been more mobile than the ones that we've seen there in the center of Cairo in Tahrir Square. These ones here have been the crowds walk around. We've seen them walk through many, many miles of this city.
Okay, meanwhile, remember, the media has been the target of violence in Egypt. The Al Jazeera office in Cairo was vandalized today. Let's take a look at this video of journalists being targeted by the Cairo authorities, their equipment being taken away.
Sir, please. Nothing, sir.
I'm just trying to get out of here, my man.
Please, sir. I'm helping. Just.
Okay. You take the camera? No. Okay.
Excuse me.
I don't know who you guys are.
It's okay.
Can I go at least? Can I at least go next door with my colleagues?
Camera, security down. It's outside. Hot kamartak وقول في ذلك.
Can you at least come next door with my boss? I literally the room next
All
door.
room, no camera,
sir.
in here.
Please, sir. The safety.
I totally understand, but I can't give my camera up without talking to my colleagues for a moment. Please.
شوف الاستندر وين الاستندر خد يا ثاني خليني اقعد اشوف.
Now, across Cairo, several journalists have been detained, roughed up. CNN-IBN's foreign editor Surya Gangadharan and video journalist Rajesh Bhardwaj were detained for several hours today, questioned by the Cairo police. This is the second time in the last 24 hours. Remember, Rajesh's camera has been snatched by the army and he was in detention yesterday as well. Listen to his story.
तो आर्मी ऑफिसर जो मेरे पास सबसे पहले उन्होंने मेरा पासपोर्ट लिया, पासपोर्ट, कैमरा, मोबाइल ऑफ कर दिया। उसके बाद मुझे अंदर ले गए। अंदर उन्होंने कुछ बंदों को अरेस्ट किया हुआ था, उनके साथ ही मुझे डाल दिया। वहाँ पे 5-6 सोल्जर थे। मैंने काफ़ी रिक्वेस्ट की, मुझे मतलब प्लीज एक कॉल करने दो इंडियन एम्बेसी में, माइक को लेकर बाहर उनसे बात करने दो। तो उन्होंने स्ट्रिक्टली मना कर दिया, मतलब डिटेक्शन पर मतलब मीडिया को यहाँ पे नहीं आना है, तो आप लोग मतलब किसलिए आए यहाँ पे। कैमरा तो मुझे अभी तक दिया नहीं, पासपोर्ट और मोबाइल मुझे भेजा। उसके बाद मैंने काफ़ी रिक्वेस्ट की, मुझे कैमरा वापस कर दो। उसके बाद फिर मुझे दोबारा बंद करने लगे थे वो लोग। तो मेन टारगेटिंग तो इंडिया जर्नलिस्ट के ऊपर ही किया हुआ है उन लोगों ने।
Okay, now ABC's Christian Amanpour has spoken to Hosni Mubarak to try and find out whether he was actually willing to step down. Amanpour says that Mubarak says he's ready to step down, but only after a while, else Egypt, he says, will descend into chaos. Listen in.
He told me that he was very unhappy to see the violence of the last few days between his supporters and those protesters against him, but he said he did not want to see Egyptians fighting Egyptians. When I asked him, what about stepping down? He told me, he said, Christian, after 62 years of public service, I am fed up. I want to go. But I cannot resign today, he said, because otherwise there will be chaos. Otherwise, he was afraid, he said, that the Muslim Brotherhood, the banned Islamist party, would take over. That has been the government line ever since these protests have erupted. He said, I will stay until my term is out. He felt that he could weather this storm. And he said that I will die on Egyptian soil. Once I leave, I want to stay here in Egypt. He said that I will not flee. He said he had not been specifically asked by the president to leave immediately, but I did tell him, he said, that you do not understand Egyptian culture. If I leave right away, there will be chaos. I then asked his vice president, Omar Suleiman, on camera, you've asked the protesters to leave the square. What if they don't? Will you order the army to crack down? And Omar Suleiman told me no way, we will not do that. We will ask them to leave. We hope they will leave. We feel that we have met their demands for reform, but we will not use the army against them.
Okay, India is finally now reacting strongly to what's happening in Egypt. Our Deputy Foreign Affairs Editor Suhasini Haider has spoken to External Affairs Minister S.M. Krishna. He slammed the Mubarak government for its attacks on the media.
But certainly it looks like a huge crackdown on the media in Cairo, as well as a crackdown on demonstrators as well by the government. What is India's position? What's your reaction to the situation there?
I think the crackdown on the media, the assault on journalists from all over the world who had gathered to report about the developments in Egypt is certainly condemnable. It is an act against the freedom of the press, the freedom of the media, and India does not go along with the situation, But at the same time, the media also will have to be very responsible.
Shouldn't India be taking a stronger position, speaking to the Egyptian government about the way the Indian media has been treated there?
Well, we are in constant touch with our mission. Ambassador Swaminathan has been doing an excellent job under the most trying conditions, and we certainly will convey our displeasure at the way the Indian media in particular have been handled. And it becomes all the more regrettable that the military personnel was responsible in seeking out journalists from various hotels and then taking them into custody.
On the larger question, the US, England, as well as Australia, they've all spoken very strongly on the need for a transition in government in Egypt. Is that a hope that India now shares, that there should be a change in government?
Well, I think 3 days back when I talked to one of the television channels, I did convey that India goes along with the aspirations, the democratic aspirations for reforms in Egypt, which is being urged by the people, The large majority of people in Egypt, they want reforms, they want democratization of the whole polity, and I think that is legitimate.
Okay, India sending a firm signal to Hosni Mubarak, but what happens to the Egyptian dictator? Joining us now, Arundhati Ghosh, former Indian ambassador to Egypt, joins us. Appreciate your joining us, ma'am. What's the sense you're getting at the end of this Friday? Do you believe that Hosni Mubarak has dug his heels in, or do you believe he's on his way out?
I don't think they are mutually exclusive. I think that a person like Mubarak will want to stay on for as long as possible, but I think he will have to go.
How soon? Are you looking?
Situation is such.
Are you looking at something that will take months, days, weeks?
I don't think the patience of the people will last that long. The Egyptians are normally a very laid-back people, but when laid-back people are roused to this pitch of rage, I think that it is not going to disappear so fast.
But how do you?
It's going to continue to be unstable.
How do you respond to those who are telling us, some reports coming from CNN, that banks are going to open on Sunday, that the president has made it clear that he's already reached out and he will reach out no further to his critics, that in a sense a deal could be struck with the Americans where he goes after a month or so after tempers are lowered?
I think the tempers will be lowered only when he goes. I don't think that they should wait for the tempers to be lowered. It sounds implausible. I, of course, can't see into the future. But I think that there were some reports that the crowds intended to march towards Heliopolis where the presidential palace is. If they start doing that, and the army doesn't open fire, as they seem to have said, how is he going to stay? How is the banks may open, which would reassure
what
people
role
who have bank accounts.
What role do you see the army playing here? Do you believe that the army will stay completely neutral, or do you believe it's the army which will be now the deciding factor in what happens next in Egypt?
It will. I think it would be a decisive factor, but the army is a conscript army. It's not a volunteers army. So the lower ranks are likely to be more in sympathy with the protesters, if they are. But they are a very disciplined, very professional army. It is the senior generals on whom, if the United States wishes to end this soon, which according to President Obama they do, that is where they must put the pressure. The money they give the Egyptian army every year.
Right. Arundhati Ghosh.
I think they give over $1 billion.
Arundhati Ghosh, appreciate your joining us here on India at 9, giving us your sense of what is happening in Egypt. Now remember, we'll have plenty more ground reports coming up after 9:30. Egypt crisis, top focus here again on CNN-IBN.
This is just a completely surreal experience. Okay. This is a little chaotic. I have someone helping me out here.
वहीं पे रोड पे आर्मी के 2-3 टैंक थे, वहीं पे लेके गए मुझे वहाँ पे, और वो फिल्म निकाल ली, टेप निकालने के बाद टेप मेरे सामने जला दी, और वो आईडी मेरा जो आई कार्ड था वो उन्होंने मेरे सामने मतलब जला दिया.
We immediately started to turn around. We realized the situation would get very bad very quickly.
This government has turned Egyptian against Egyptian, families against each other, brother against brother.